cracking an ancient mystery. Archaeologists discover Cleopatra's tomb. The ancient city of Taposiris Magna lies hidden on Egypt's northern coast. These days there's barely anything left of its former glory, but what's buried underneath might hold the key to solving a famous mystery, where Cleopatra, Egypt's most iconic queen, is buried. A recently discovered tunnel called an engineering marvel for its time revealed an underground structure about 43 feet long, partially submerged in water. Its design and construction are similar to the famous Eupalinian tunnel in Greece, a stunning ancient project built by digging from both ends to meet in the middle. The precision of the math and engineering used back then was remarkable, especially since it was built near a mountain. Archaeologists working at the Taposiris Magna site since 2004 believe this tunnel could lead to Cleopatra's long-lost tomb. And so far, the evidence they've found supports this theory. To begin with, the city and its temple were built by one of Cleopatra's ancestors. Almost all the architecture points to being dedicated to the ancient spirit Osiris and his queen Isis during Cleopatra's reign. Cleopatra herself tried to present herself as the living embodiment of Isis, so it wouldn't be surprising if she chose this place as her final resting spot. Scientists haven't yet pinpointed Cleopatra's tomb, but the search continues, using modern technology to study the site. Archaeologists even used a special device called ground-penetrating radar. This tool lets them see what's underground without having to dig first, which is crucial when the site is so ancient. It's incredibly useful to get an underground picture before excavation, and they've been doing this since 2011. If Cleopatra's tomb is found, it could help piece together her story, especially what happened at the end of her life, which is still surrounded by mystery. We still don't know exactly how she died. Some believe she let a venomous Egyptian cobra bite her. Others suggest she had access to poisons and kept some hidden in a hairbrush just in case, but that doesn't necessarily mean she planned to use them on herself. There are lots of other fascinating details about Cleopatra. For instance, she actually had a personal hairdresser. Many ancient images show her wearing black eyeliner, a look created by a woman named Iris, who was also Cleopatra's personal pharmacist and close companion. Iris would draw long lines from Cleopatra's eyes out to her temples, a style that's, still used today to make eyes stand out. Despite her carefully crafted image, research suggests Cleopatra wasn't as stunningly beautiful as many films portray her. Modern movies often show her with perfect, delicate features, but coins from her time show an appearance that was, honestly, fairly ordinary. Even those coins might have been designed to make her look stronger and more powerful to her people. So, we don't have any truly reliable source confirming what she looked like. Ancient writings often focused more on her voice, charm, and personality than on her beauty. Cleopatra might be the most famous Egyptian queen today, but she actually wasn't meant to be queen at first. She had an older sister named Berenice who was supposed to take the throne, but Berenice died before that could happen, so Cleopatra stepped in. She was just 18 when she took power, and she quickly became popular thanks to her intelligence and education. She traveled a lot across the country to get to know her people and their needs. She had great taste in literature and was known as a fan of Homer, the legendary Greek poet and philosopher. She loved writing as much as reading, and there are even claims she wrote a book about medicine and cosmetics, though no copy has survived. Back then, being a great ruler meant knowing multiple languages, and Cleopatra clearly understood this. Some historians suggest she spoke Greek, Egyptian, Ethiopian, several Arabic dialects, and possibly Latin, though there's not much evidence for Latin. Even if she didn't look like a goddess, Cleopatra cared deeply about her image, including her diet. She loved luxurious perfumes and believed scent could influence how people perceived her. Her signature fragrance was based on myrrh, a resin from local trees mixed with other ingredients like cardamom, olive oil, and cinnamon. These perfumes were thicker and lasted longer than modern perfumes. At the time, Cleopatra may have been the richest person in the world. She ruled over a territory stretching across the Mediterranean, from what is now Libya in the west, through Egypt, all the way to Syria in the east. By today's standards, her wealth might have been around $95 billion. Cleopatra might have even played a part in shaping the calendar we use today. She reportedly introduced Julius Caesar to the idea of leap years and extra days. Caesar, who trusted her advice, added these changes to the official Roman calendar. Ancient Egyptians had already discovered that a year was slightly longer than 365 days by studying Sirius, the brightest star, and found it was actually 365 and a quarter days. In 1963, actress Elizabeth Taylor brought Cleopatra into modern pop culture when she starred in the film Cleopatra. At the time, it became the most expensive film ever made. It was supposed to cost about $2 million but ballooned to $44 million due to script and production problems. The film had 79 new sets built from scratch and over 26,000 costumes. Taylor's costumes alone cost about $200,000. Luckily, the movie got good reviews and became a box office hit. Many people associate Cleopatra with another famous Egyptian ruler, King Tutankhamun, King Tut. But surprisingly, aside from being pharaohs, they had nothing in common. King Tut lived about 1,300 years before Cleopatra, and their backgrounds were different too. Cleopatra had Macedonian Greek roots, while Tut was fully Egyptian. In November 1922, a boy wandering the Egyptian desert stumbled on ancient carved steps. This led to the discovery of Tutankhamun's untouched tomb, which turned out to be one of the greatest archaeological finds ever, containing around 5,000 artifacts, jewelry, fabrics, painted decorations, and funerary masks, one of which became world famous. Now, more than a century later, we may finally be close to another major discovery, Cleopatra's tomb. She was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, reigning from 51 to 30 BC. Despite many ancient records about her rule and remarkable character, no one has yet uncovered the mystery of where she was buried. That's why archaeologist Dr. Kathleen Martinez has spent decades studying ancient texts and temples near Alexandria. She concluded Cleopatra's tomb must be beneath the ruins of Taposiris Magna, founded around 280 BC, a bustling city on Egypt's northern coast, once home to tens of thousands of traders and craftsmen. Dr. Martinez's instincts seem to have been right. She and her team discovered a hidden underground tunnel near Alexandria, about half a mile long, carved into rock beneath the temple of Taposiris Magna. Further excavations uncovered many clues suggesting Cleopatra's tomb might lie deeper inside. There's even a chance she was buried alongside the Roman general Mark Antony. According to ancient records, Cleopatra and Mark Antony loved each other, and together opposed the Roman Senate, which declared Antony a traitor. But natural disasters in the region over thousands of years, including earthquakes and floods, may have damaged or buried the underground tunnels. Despite this, archaeologists still hope they're close to finding the ancient tomb. It's still untouched, and is thought to hide many treasures and records about royal life in ancient Egypt during the last dynasty. There's a chance excavations might need to go underwater or dig through mud, which would take a lot of time and money, but archaeologists believe it'll be worth it. It's too early to say for sure that Cleopatra is really buried there, but scientists have found plenty of evidence inside the tunnel suggesting it, including pottery, dozens of coins with Cleopatra's image, and even some with Alexander the Great, as well as a bust thought to represent the Egyptian queen herself. Cleopatra is still one of Egypt's most popular historical figures, on the same level as Ramses III and Tutankhamun. She's inspired countless films, paintings, and books. What really made her famous, though, was the contrast in her character. She was a smart and beautiful ruler who pulled Egypt out of crisis and turned it into a thriving power. Some medieval Arabic texts say she knew chemistry, math, and philosophy, and might have written scientific books. She spoke several languages and had excellent diplomatic skills. At the same time, there are lots of legends claiming she was a deadly seductress who drove many men mad, but there's no solid proof that her beauty was truly unmatched. Hollywood created that glamorous image of Cleopatra, casting famous actresses in her role, while the Roman Emperor Octavian, adopted son of Julius Caesar, deliberately portrayed her as a cunning temptress because she was his enemy. Although Cleopatra was born in Egypt, she wasn't ethnically Egyptian. Her ancestors were Greek, descended from one of Alexander the Great's generals. Still, the Egyptian people loved her. She learned their language, respected local traditions, and deeply understood Egypt's history, mindset, and customs. She boosted the country's economy and strengthened Egypt's status as a global power, thanks largely to her cleverness and charisma. Cleopatra loved grand shows and lavish celebrations, and knew how to impress people with a good spectacle. But behind her glamorous public image, she was a sharp, calculating ruler, determined to protect Egypt's wealth and position on the world stage. For example, when she clashed with her brother, Ptolemy XIII, Cleopatra realized she couldn't defeat him directly, so she decided to win over Julius Caesar instead. Caesar arrived in Alexandria and Cleopatra wanted to meet him, but Ptolemy was ready to stop her. So instead of arriving in a big, flashy entourage, Cleopatra had herself wrapped inside a rug, or maybe a linen sack, and smuggled into Caesar's private chambers. She unrolled herself from the rug, surprising Caesar with her courage and beauty. The plan worked, they fell in love and became political allies. Later, Cleopatra used similar charm to impress another powerful Roman, Mark Antony. She sailed to meet him on a golden barge with purple sails and silver oars, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, sitting under a magnificent canopy. Her servants were dressed like cupids, fanning her and burning incense. She created this display because she knew Antony admired Greek mythology and saw himself as a new Dionysus. Antony was so taken by her that he ended up marrying her. Cleopatra defended her throne, solidified her alliance with Rome, and had 3 children with Antony. Together in Egypt, they held huge feasts and enjoyed immense wealth and power. But back in Rome, their relationship caused scandal. Octavian, Antony's main rival for power, used this to ruin Antony's reputation. Through propaganda, Octavian painted Cleopatra as a manipulative foreign seductress who had bewitched Antony. The Roman Senate backed Octavian and declared Cleopatra an enemy. In 33 BC, everything came to a head when Antony's fleet clashed with Octavian's navy. Octavian won, forcing Antony and Cleopatra to flee to Egypt. According to some sources, they hid near Alexandria in one of Cleopatra's palace shelters, where their story came to a tragic end. Some legends say Cleopatra, an expert in poisons, provoked a venomous snake, like an asp or an Egyptian cobra, to bite her. Another story claims she used a poisoned hairpin. There's also a theory that she always carried a tiny vial of poison hidden in her hairbrush. When cornered, she dipped a needle into it and pricked herself. No one knows the true story yet, but scientists hope that if they eventually find Cleopatra's tomb, it might finally reveal what really happened to her. She was the last ruler of Egypt. After her death, Octavian looted her palaces and temples and returned to Rome, where he became the first emperor, ruled successfully, expanded the empire, and died at age 75. History might have looked completely different if Cleopatra and Antony hadn't lost that final naval battle. By the way, did you know that the time between Cleopatra's reign and Neil Armstrong landing on the moon is actually shorter than the time between Cleopatra's life and the building of the Great Pyramid at Giza? Armstrong stepped onto the moon in 1969, 2,038 years after Cleopatra was born. But the Great Pyramid was built around 2560 BC, meaning Cleopatra is closer to us than she was to the pyramids. That shows just how incredibly long Egypt's history really is. It's 1898, and imagine you're taking part in an excavation at Sakara, near Cairo, a place full of ancient tombs and pyramids. You're hoping to discover something amazing that'll make you famous golden scrolls, treasure maps, or pharaoh mummies. But instead you find a small wooden bird. At first you're disappointed, it looks like an ordinary toy, but you have no idea that years later someone will suggest that this little bird might actually be an ancient model of a monoplane. This artifact, called the Saqqara Bird, is carved from sycamore wood. It has a wingspan of about 7 inches and weighs roughly 40 grams, a perfect little Egyptian souvenir. It's over 2,000 years old and looks very simple, with no fancy feather carvings, just a beak and 2 eyes. It kind of resembles a falcon, the symbol of the god Horus. Its tail is unusual, square-shaped and upright, and it seems like it once had a missing piece. People love a good mystery, so there were many attempts to explain what the bird was used for. The simplest idea is that it was just ceremonial. Another idea is that it was a toy for a rich child, possibly used like a boomerang, which was common in ancient Egypt. Another theory suggested it was part of a ritual, but that was ruled out because the figure has no holes or marks, except those drilled later by the Cairo Museum to mount it on a stick. Almost a century after it was discovered, Egyptologist Dr. Khalil Messiha proposed a new idea. Maybe it was a model of a real monoplane. He thought the bird originally had a horizontal tail stabilizer, and its wings were angled similarly to modern planes, possibly making it capable of aerodynamic lift. Dr. Masiha pointed out that it was common at the time to bury miniature models of technological inventions in tombs. So, did the ancient Egyptians really invent airplanes around 200 BC, long before the Wright brothers? The Wrights flew their first plane in 1903, so that would be honestly pretty shocking. But to find out, someone had to test it. Of course, the Cairo Museum wouldn't let anyone throw their precious artifact like a toy, so glider designer Martin Gregory built a replica from balsa wood. He concluded that even with a tail, it wasn't a very good glider. Case closed, or maybe not. The History Channel wasn't convinced, so they had an aerodynamics expert build another replica and test it in conditions similar to ancient Egypt. Surprisingly, it flew quite well. If true, it would make the Saqqara Bird a classic out-of-place artifact, something far ahead of its time. And well, it's not the only strange find. In 1901, divers discovered the Antikythera mechanism in a shipwreck near a Greek island. It's now thought to be the world's first analog computer, dating to around 100 BC. This bronze device could track the positions of the sun, moon, planets, and stars, predict lunar phases and solar eclipses, and even calculate the moon's speed through the sky. No one knows exactly who used it, how, or where it was built, but it's clearly far more advanced than anything else from that period. And speaking of inventions, the first flush toilets weren't invented in the 20th century. Just kidding. Ancient people in places like Minoan Crete and the Indus Valley had them around 4,000 years ago. Their plumbing and drainage were so good, it still amazes archaeologists today. Subscribe and explore forgotten history with us. Like, share, and join us on the next adventure under the ruins. See you next time for another journey into